Hey, this is Vu, and I think matchmaking has a pretty significant problem that isn't being talked about or it's being written off, but I think I have a fairly unique view on this and want to go into it. So the first thing to mention is that this seems to be a problem mostly with smaller regions. I've now played in European matchmaking and North American matchmaking, and this is primarily a problem in North American matchmaking. So what I want to do here is outline what the problem is, how it affects average players, and hopefully come up with some ideas as to why it's happening or maybe some solutions. But really, I want to get this out there and kind of get this signal boosted to get an answer potentially. So the reason I think I have a unique perspective is both because I'm a Face It 10 player, but also because I played European and North American matchmaking recently, where the problem is very apparent that this is a small region issue. I would imagine you can tell me yourself if this is something that you've had a problem with in, Oceania or Asia. Probably you wouldn't notice this in Europe though. So if we scroll back past my time in Europe, which began about the middle of September, you can see I ranked in at Gold Nova 4. And roughly 20 to 30 games later, I was into LEM. And I should probably rank up to Global at some point, but regardless, the important thing is if we go back shortly before that, in August, I was in MG1 in NA. And this isn't through lack of playing. I was playing actually quite a bit at some point and struggled once I hit DMG and eventually just began D-ranking. And this seems pretty weird. Now, the thing is, it's not that these games were all that hard. If I look at my ADR in these games, things are going fairly well. The problem isn't that the games are really hard. The problem is that they're not ranking me up. And so why is a Face It 10 player who should be able to get global in EU stuck in MG1? I'd like to try and convince you of my theory. My current theory is that when you are the highest ranked player in a game, it is extremely hard for you to rank up. And in smaller regions, you are not going to get balanced games where you are not consistently the highest rank if you're solo queuing and you're something like DMG. I've got a couple of other theories, but that's the main leading one. And so if I look at this, if I go into this final game I had in MG1 here, you can get a decent idea of how imbalanced these games are. This is not an uncommon sequence. This is not an uncommon state of affairs, right? 3 silvers, a Gold Nova 4, and an MG1 versus 2 silvers, a Gold Nova 2, Gold Nova 4, and an MG1. Now, one of the biggest problems actually in North America, but I'm sure in other regions as well, is your opponents will consistently be high-level Face It players. Wait, Vu, why am I supposed to care about this? While this may seem like me complaining, and to some extent it is, the reality is this is actually a significant problem. Matchmaking is where new players start playing, and if they're stuck in a low rank while winning a large amount of their games or simply playing against players way too good for them, they're not going to enjoy it and they're going to switch to another game. This is actually the lifeblood of Counter-Strike. And especially if you see some of the games where I'm playing with globals against silvers or the guy that's got 2 KDRs stuck in MGE, this isn't fun for people. You see Reddit posts about this all the time. People are frustrated. For example, if I look at Ray here, he is also a Face It 10 player, and Colt is a Face It 8 or 9 player as well. Now, you would think that the problem is that these players don't play enough, right? If you only play Face It and you occasionally play matchmaking, perhaps the region has so few players that simply the occasional matchmaking player from Face It is going to really screw things up. However, if I look at Ray, who is Gold Nova 4, he plays a lot, and he doesn't seem to be ranking up. This is not a player who doesn't play very much. He's got 1,600 wins, and he's in Gold Nova 4, despite being, again, a Face It 10 player. Just kidding, he actually deranked to Face It 9 since I first tried to make this video. However, he is just about a Face It 10 player. Face It 9 is the same thing generally, right? The idea is that this is a guy who should easily be able to get high rank in matchmaking. In fact, in European matchmaking, I can tell you, most of the people in LEM are Face It 5 or below. My experience is that when people submit demos and they say their matchmaking and their Faceit ranks, the globals are roughly Faceit 6 or 7. That's typically where they go in. So the question is, why the hell is a Faceit 9 stuck in Gold Nova? Why the hell was I stuck in MG1? Again, my leading theory is that the elo distribution isn't quite right when you're the highest ranked player in your game. And I want to give you a couple of games where I think that might be the case. So I'll get to this where I won 5 in a row with silvers on my team and lost 2 in a row, where this is the final one. But the first one to mention is this little sequence here. This is 4 games after ranking up where this is a standard game. It's one high ranked player on each team typically, and then a couple of low ranked players below. Generally, these just about even out in ranks throughout these 3 games, which are very one-sided games. Then it's 5 defeats in a row. And if you look at it, that game we were slightly favored. Then we have this game where it's a 5 stack against 5 solos. It's 3 LEMs, a DMG and an MG against Novas primarily, and we pick up 13 rounds. And I'd like to think that 13 rounds with that type of rank disparity should actually increase your elo in theory, right? You should probably be gaining something if you can get that many rounds with that much of a rank disparity. We play the same exact stack in the following game, 5 stack versus 3 solos and a duo. We get 9 rounds, which is probably about what you're expecting. Then there's a couple of games here. I would ignore the VAC bans, by the way, because they weren't VAC banned the last time I looked at this. This is just about a balanced game. And this game here, we pick up 11 rounds against 2 Supremes, an LEM, DMG, MG1, and we've got 2 silvers. And this is all soloed. So first of all, this game should not be possible. I would much rather have longer queues than have a game be possible where we have 2 silvers facing off against Supreme. You can't even queue together if you have rank disparities that large. You literally cannot queue together. But 11 rounds should probably equate to, again, gaining elo. I would imagine if you play a real MGE, if I'm not a Faceit 10, this team should get 16-1, but we got 11 rounds. So it's a little bit confusing, although understandable, I suppose, to see that you might get deranked off of that if you had already lost a lot of elo beforehand. But then I've got another sequence as I immediately rank back up. I've got another sequence. I have 9 wins, a tie, and 3 losses, and the third loss is a D rank. Again, standard situation here. We've got a silver on the team. I think these ranks just about even out. I'm not going to do the math on it, but D rank, rank back up, win 5 games in a row, lose this game where it should be roughly balanced. Again, these games being 1 high rank and 4 low ranks really does end up creating situations where it's just a question of, do you have a Faceit 10 Smurf on the other team? Not even a Smurf. Usually this is their main accounts. I'm not joking. Do you have a Faceit 10 on the other team or do you not? And if you don't, you lose, right? But the question mark is that how this following game happens, again, 5 stack versus 5 solos. How does this, honestly, I'm just kind of bewildered here. This isn't making any sense how the elo is being distributed in these games. And to say that these 5 wins, I mean, we are outranked in all of these games. I'm queuing with 2 silvers, and we're playing mostly against MGs. We are outranked in every single one of the following games. We are pretty notably outranked or even rank at worst because we're playing with silver. And then this D rank happens. Look, I'm not here to cry, woe is me, that I couldn't rank up. Look, I've gone to Europe. I've fled the country. I've fled the continent to go to Europe, and matchmaking is actually normal here. If I look at my games while in Europe, there are games like this one where the enemy team has right about 3 Faceit 10s, I believe, against what is mostly Faceit 5s on my team. There are games like that, but primarily these games are mostly... Wow. Yeah, I played this one at 5 a.m., so it makes sense. But the thing is that primarily these games are very close together in rank, within a couple of ranks on either side. And so I think when you have games in regions where are enough players that the ranks are relatively equal in the games, things go pretty well. The problem is when you end up in a region like NA where the ranks are super spread out, things aren't working correctly, and there's clearly something wrong with the algorithm in general, in my opinion, that allows someone to run ridiculously high stats, be a face it 10 player, and end up stuck in these low ranks. And this isn't uncommon. I want to show you a player here. It used to be Papa Smurf was his name, but now it's LS Dreams since a couple of days ago. He has a 1.8 HLTV rating and a nearly 2 KDR, which means he's almost certainly cheating. That's just kind of how it works, right? But he doesn't have a lot of bans in his previous matches. 169 over 1100 games is actually less than I have in my games as a legit player, right? I mean, that's not a lot of bans, right? 1 in 10 games, not a lot of VAC bans to have. He hard carries every single game that he is in, and he is struggling to maintain DMG as well. This is a person who wins game after game after game after game after game, and he simply cannot rank up. He has a 63% win rate, and he primarily plays solo or duo. And this is someone who I've been kind of keeping tabs on a little bit, because when I played with him a long time ago, he was LE. And so this is him maintaining rank while running a 63% win rate. I don't really understand how this is possible. I don't know what's going on, but I would love to see an explanation as to how this guy can win 13 games in a row and not rank up. Of course, I understand the way the system works. It's not technically ELO, it's Glicko. If you play a stack of games together in one day, it matters less if you compared to if you play them spread out. But there's still some things wrong where you can have a player that's clearly cheating, and he is not in trust factor hell. He barely has people banned in his games at all. That is not ranking up. This isn't making any sense. Anyways, thanks for watching, and I hope this helped. Obviously it didn't. I hope I get a fucking answer.